Anyone and everyone, life forms of all atomic structures and compositions. Welcome to this extra special video where we will be commemorating our big milestone victory of 1,000 subscribers on the channel. And I know there's gonna be one guy out there who's saying, David, 1,000 subscribers ain't that much, you know? Some of these guys got tens, hundreds, even a million. 1,000 ain't that much. And to that one guy I say, people like to break things down into numbers and they forget the humanity side of it. You put 1,000 people in a room, that's gonna be a pretty damn big room. And the room is still growing because even though I was late with this video, we're still getting a bunch of subscribers. People keep supporting the channel, and that means a lot. And speaking of supporting the channel, we gotta talk about today's sponsor. That's right, this video couldn't have been possible without you. You're our sponsor. You watching the video and linking it or interacting, all that stuff. Because without you, we wouldn't be doing a celebration video. So hopefully I didn't lose people, you know, trying to find the spot where the ad is over for that dumb joke. You know, I've had a lot of fun interacting with people over Discord, Knockout, Twitter, even the YouTube comments here. And I figured that the best way to really celebrate that 1K sub is to do what I love doing, and that's interacting with you guys. So we set up this little questionnaire. We had people tell us, you know, what kind of questions they wanted me to answer, and I compiled a list of about 100 questions. I organized them. They did lose a couple of names because I wanted to keep the flow of the video clear, so I'm hoping that goes through. But it should be a good time. So sit back, relax, allow me to take you through the inner machinations of my mind, or rather, as you have presented it, with this, I guess, well, hopefully well-made questionnaire.
Good luck.
We'll start this off with the big question that I was asked multiple times, and everybody gets asked, what's your favorite video game?
Wow, I mean that is that's one of those questions that's impossible to answer. You can't just limit it to one. It depends upon your mood, the season.
No, well, it's hard to pick a favorite. It is, you know, as a gamer you enjoy a lot of games, and it is about what you feel like playing. But there's a reason why this video starts off with a Mega Man parody, because honestly, I do think that the Mega Man games, probably the first three, the NES ones, they've got to be my favorite games. Just for design aspects and stuff like that, and just the gameplay. Everything is really difficult, but it's fair. Well, sometimes an enemy flies off screen, but that doesn't take away from the fact that it is still very well designed as a game, and everything really rolls on top of each other when you play it. Dark Messiah comes down second for the mechanics that it introduces. In the Half-Life series, I really enjoy the lore behind it. But Mega Man has got to be the one where I find myself re-downloading that game. Well, and actually Banjo as a series. I love those two games. But Mega Man is for the simplistic sort of stuff. So, there you go. Hopefully I didn't lose like 50 to 100 subscribers just by saying that. I'm sorry. And segueing into that, another question I was asked was, what got me into modding, and what was the very first game I modded? Well, you know, Lord Almighty, this is gonna bite me someplace it shouldn't. But a long time ago, I'd say 15 years ago, I was creating a variant of S-Mod, a Half-Life 2 mod. It adds a bunch of wacky stuff like throwable bananas, shovels, gore, all sorts of stuff. And it was based off another S-Mod variant, right? And that one was titled S-Mod Remastered Redux V5. And I say version 5 because the creator ended up changing one of the core aspects of what I was working on in his V6, which is character selection. You'd be able to play as different sort of characters going through the Half-Life 2 campaign in his V5. You know, you'd have Adrian Shepard, you have Neo, Master Chief, the Fear Guy, all sorts of stuff, and each one would have their own abilities. When I was modding this, I wanted to try and give each character their own campaign. It was basically just a bunch of map ads and choosing popular Half-Life 2 maps and add-ons that would work well for a campaign with some script edits thrown in there. And it was a really fun time for me. Honestly, it was a combination of making your own story from existing parts. You know, the classic, you've got a Lego set and here's the instructions, but you can put the Lego set in whatever way you want at the end because it's Lego. And, you know, making the scripts that would support it. So I never touched a real, you know, I didn't trust a letter of code at that point, but it was a lot of scripting stuff in terms of using the text files and lining everything up like that built into SMod. And believe it or not, this was sort of something I got into because, and here's another question, what was the first video I ever created? It's a trailer for an SMod variant. I actually did a bunch of SMod variants, and at the request of people, I will upload the full video in all its horrible, horrible glory. Because good God. But that would have been these are my first experiences with this. It all came down to SMod, I think, because obviously I'm a little kid playing Half-Life. Well, I wouldn't say little, but playing Half-Life 2, and then just you get a kick, you get gore. What is there not to like, you know? Boxers or briefs? Well, you know, I like the support, so that should answer that. Where are the Super Sabers? Being investigated by top men. Why did you do it? I'm not here to give any confessions publicly, thank you very much. What is your social security number? Of course.
457-55-5462. That is my real social security number.
What does the OS stand for in wiltOS? I don't have a good answer for you. It changes all the time. So, sorry. Cat or dog? I am a dog person mostly, but I do not discriminate against any animals. They are all the best and they will be pet. Do you give cash or presents for Christmas gifts? This depends on the person. I mostly try to give presents, but if I gotta give cash, I will make sure that it's worthwhile. If Naruto does his sexy jutsu, and what the hell? If Naruto does his sexy jutsu and has sex with his clone, what is it? I'm pretty sure it's masturbation. I never knew what the hell this was. I had to Google this. I kinda regret Googling it.
You shouldn't have told me, but you did. And now I'm telling you, you don't want to know.
Since there were so many Dark Messiah specific questions, I've sectioned these off into 4, I guess, related things. And I've also reoriented some of the questions to simplify it, because otherwise this video would be 900 hours long. So I apologize if the questions may not be the exact things that people had asked, but the answers I made sure incorporated what you guys are looking for in your questions. So, to start it off, the first section is of course a little personal, I guess, questions that people asked me that were relating to Dark Messiah, just like we started this video. The first one is, when did you play Dark Messiah for the first time and was it a gift? I honestly think it's so long ago. I'm pretty sure I played it not long after release because I still had a physical copy and I had to manually download patches. I eventually got a Steam copy, but yeah. I also know that there's no way I could have got that myself, so it was absolutely a gift. I remember harassing one of my family members to buy it. There's definitely some back and forth because there was some nudity involving Xana, and it's kind of funny because the blood and gore wasn't that big of an issue, so that's just the irony of that. The next question was, when did you first start adding the co-op? When did I first decide to do that? I remember trying when I was still a novice because, you know, at the time people were saying you could do like Portal in co-op, for example, by just using some console commands to turn on the multiplayer and stuff like that. And I had tried to do it that way, but it didn't work because, well, you see how much work it's been just to get it playable at this point. But then I remember trying again, you know, what is it now, 3.5 years ago, and it was because of a discussion I was having with a friend of mine who was saying how cool it would be to do Dark Messiah in co-op, and then I really just started getting in there. Following that, have you ever considered quitting when things got hard? honestly, given that I have a little bit of masochism with Mega Man here as my favorite game, I do love to walk into tough issues and having that catharsis of figuring out, or, you know, the satisfaction of walking away with more information. So that does drive me a little bit, but what really drives you when things get super tough is, you know, the support of the community. I know that sounds cheesy and preachy, but it's true, because this project isn't just for me, it's for everyone. So if I give up, then it's bad, right? So I have to keep going. And usually that works out, because at the end of the day, I end up solving an issue that's hard, and then I realize they're not going to be that hard. And of course, the last question, that is the biggest question of all, did you dream about rope arrows? I had goddamn nightmares about ropes, okay? After the Dark Messiah co-op development, the ropes crashing everything, and it taking something like 3 months, I am tired of ropes. But, with all that said, I am very excited to go back into working with the ropes now that I know more, because it means that I can correct some of the stuff that I had done prior to get it working, at least playable, right? So I had nightmares. I wouldn't call them dreams. Nightmares is the for sure. This section is pertaining to development and SDK related things that we've been sort of working on and trying to gear towards as we continue with our own research in the game. And the first one, of course, is what kind of license will the SDK use? And it's hard to answer that question because I don't really own the code, right? And by I don't really, I mean I don't own the code. We're reverse engineering it, right? This is all up to Ubisoft. But the direction that I'm trying to nudge for is complete free use, but not for profit, for obvious reasons. This is a reverse engineering game. You'd probably need their permission to get any profits for it. And this is no different, I think, than the standard source engine licensing, so this should be okay. How complicated is it from the ground up to make a Dark Messiah project? For example, a sword that turns things into a duck, and how hard to get that duck in Dark Messiah? This is also a really hard question because it's all perspective, but I'll try my best here. Right now, the way we're developing things with the SDK, it's sort of geared towards total conversion type mods. But at the end of the day, I want to be able to add, since I've done a lot of development with Garry's mod, you know, a sort of add-on system that utilizes the source engine plugins code that is already existing in Dark Messiah. That way we don't have to, you know, reinvent the wheel on this one. And setting it up should be fairly straightforward. You'd have all the code ahead of you. We have the headers, you have the C++ implementations, and then you just go in, you create your new thing, load it in, and that would be it. The complication behind the code is really the only problem. So a magic sword that turns things into a duck, programmatically is just on hit, turn into duck, and you probably want to remove the NPC and change it into a duck entity. Or if you wanted to just change the model of the NPC to a duck, you just change the model. The actual duck model should be fairly straightforward. It's no different from any source engine game. You know, you put it through Blender or whatever program you use, export, all that stuff. So should be no issues there. So here's a lot of NPC related questions. Is it possible for NPCs to use other weapons like blackguards using stone helm shields? Is it possible to make NPCs use different spells? Can they take advantage of the environment or get special animations like Cyclops or Orc grabs? And is it possible for NPCs to get a special execution like when Adrenaline is maxed out? For starters, source engine weapons are actually handled in the code of the weapons. When an NPC holds the weapon has some special code for when an NPC is the owner. In Dark Messiah's case, they use presets, so they have a set of weapons that are good for that specific NPC, and the reason why it's like that is because it allows them to not only control the progression that the NPCs have as you go through the game, they'll have certain weapons, but it'll also control the progression the player has, because the player can pick up those weapons. So it's a little bit of a double edge there, but it should be possible. So long as the code is there, there's no reason why it wouldn't work. However, some weapons don't work. For example, the Soul Drinker, it has no NPC related code, so obviously it will crash the game. And these are the sorts of things that you would be able to fix in the SDK, so that's good news there. The same sort of logic with the NPC spells. Spells are just weapons, so as long as you incorporate the code, you're good to go. Although, certain things are behavioral. For example, Errantier cloaking or some of the other mages healing each other. These are things that are just plugged into the AI. They're not particularly weapons, so that you would also be able to hopefully do your own stuff with. Taking advantage of the environment and special animations is something that is a little bit of a combination of programmatic in the AI logic, but also the level, right, with the nodes. Special animations are dangerous because the Orc Grab and Cyclops Grab, for example, are complete stuns, and they're cool because they're cool, but you don't want to get stunned too long. It takes a person out of the game. There's no reason why this wouldn't be possible if you set the whole thing up, although that would require some player manipulation. I can't really speak to that yet. Making them take advantage to the environment, though, you could easily fake that using nodes, so there's no reason why you couldn't already do that. And special executions when the adrenaline is maxed out, I think that would be neat. I assume it's something along the lines of special moves or special attacks. Hard to decide when their adrenaline would be maxed out, but there's no reason why that couldn't be fit into their AI programmatically. Now we have some implementation type questions. Will it be possible to add a dedicated third person button? Do you think it will be possible to make arrows stay in the bodies of NPCs, shields, etc.? Can I make NPCs be mutilated into parts, like orcs or blackguards get cut in half? And can you get multiplayer class spells into single player? For that first one, there's actually a lot of written code for a third person, actually specific things for Dark Messiah. There's, MM_third person or something like that. So they didn't exist in the engine until then, which is interesting. It's interesting fossil for what was in this game's DNA at some point. But there's no reason why it wouldn't be possible, although it needs some special conditions based on the little that I did see with it. Making arrows stay in bodies of NPCs and stuff like that, I can't think of why that wouldn't be possible. Actually, you might be able to do that with the entity itself. You just change the arrow to parent itself once it hits something, because at the moment it disappears. I believe this was done for performance reasons. I mean, this is a 2006, 2007 game. You don't want to chug the engine, right? So you want to simplify things. But Source Engine has something called parenting in there, and it's how weapons are attached to player hands, so no problem there. You can probably do it. Mutilating NPCs into parts, all you really need is the model and the trigger for when it should activate. I personally would love to do this as somebody that in my lightsaber project I was able to add dismemberment for no good reason, even though lightsabers cauterize wounds. Yeah, I want this. I would just need the models and have that set up and things like that. And finally, for those class spells, it's there's no reason why this wouldn't be possible. The spells are basically things that are triggered on the player or on a target, and at the end of the day you could even accomplish that with just a simple console command if you coded it, so you don't even need a whole thing for it. Actually, I think Xana's transformation is a console command, so it just goes to show how these things work. So yes, absolutely, can't see why that wouldn't be possible. Probably the moment everybody's been waiting for. Here are some co-op related questions. What will the compatibility be with other Dark Messiah mods? Honestly, I don't foresee any issues. Because none of the mods that exist have been editing any binary files and have mostly been doing scripts or models or maps, there's no reason why this wouldn't work. You most likely will have some issues once the SDK releases. We'll have to think about that, but that's something that when we get there, we'll get there. As long as both the host and client have the same mods, there's no reason why this wouldn't work. I can't see it being a problem. Speaking of host and client, will there be a public/private playtest session? I've been pushing for this. Obviously, if you've heard the dev diaries, I've been pushing Ubisoft to give me, some ability to do a public session. We'll start with closed and then open it up as we go along. And since we're waiting for those guidelines, that's pretty much all that is stopping it at the moment. So fingers crossed we get that response soon, right? Will there be any balance changes to the co-op mod? Absolutely, but not in some ways that you would expect. I don't really want to add, HP to people. I want to give more experiences given that there's more players. So I like more enemies, I like more experience, right? I like more objectives, things like that. That's what I want to do. For example, Balaam in the Discord has been going in and just messing around with the maps, adding some extra weapons for extra players, but also as an experiment there's a point where you're fighting the dragon with a couple of ballistas, and he's added an extra ballista and also added a sort of horde survival sort of thing where people would shoot the ballista and then whoever's not shooting would defend the guy shooting the ballista from the encroaching enemy. So absolutely, these are the type of things you could expect. Do you think Sarah's head should be based off Isabel's face? And for people who don't know, Isabel is Sarah's mother. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't really know the Might and Magic lore when I first jumped into this whole thing. I had to learn it more when we were doing character design stuff. And I honestly like the idea of incorporating that. I think that it works very well, especially because we don't really know what good old dad over there looks like in 100% capacity. So we can take some liberties in how that works. But I absolutely think that. I actually think that some of the concept art does have some features of Isabel, like her eyes and things like that. Will there be friendly fire in co-op? By console command? Absolutely. There's no reason why I would want to keep that off. You can turn it on if you want, and it's hilarious when you do. So, how does getting kicked work when you kick another player? It just pushes them a little bit. I really want to try making them ragdoll. It's something that I was thinking about when I figured out how to get players to ragdoll. So it's something that maybe it would be fun to do just as a joke, as something people can do to each other. I wouldn't want to knock somebody out of the game. The objective here is to keep this as vanilla as possible to the experience and really make people think that this was intended. Like, you know, the co-op mod was part of the game. So, you know, these things would be console commands, but I would absolutely love to do that. That just sounds hilarious. Can you imagine kicking your friend off a cliff? That's just... you can't get any better than that. And for this final section, just a bunch of questions people ask me about things I want to do with the SDK or things I want to do with development in Dark Messiah should things pan out the right ways. Do I have plans for new weapons, armors, animations for NPCs, or even new enemies? Of course, absolutely. There's a lot of holes that I want to plug in this game. I'm looking at you, archers. So, absolutely would want new weapons. I'd want new armor types. And one of the things I've been talking about a lot is incorporating some sort of... I guess selectable boot, I guess, because kicking is such a major part of this game. It only makes sense that you have some ability to customize it. So I think that that is gonna take some thought, but is something I would like to do. But absolutely new weapons, armors, variants, stuff like that, even enemies if possible, I would love to do that. Speaking of enemies, will I be adding the Spider Queen boss? Absolutely. That is, just in case anybody doesn't know, it's a bit of cut content for Dark Messiah in the room of the, I believe it's the Spider Temple. You're in a room with a big Spider Queen statue and then a bunch of spiders onslaught you. You're actually supposed to fight the Spider Queen there. And the information one user on Knockout was giving about how this whole thing works sounds awesome. I'd love to add that, and when the SDK is large enough, I would love absolutely to do that. Do you think everyone should fall on icy floors without exceptions? Yeah, probably. As a console command, I think that that's hilarious. I would love to have, you know, NPCs that are your allies fall and be like, what the hell, dude? But that's as a console command only. I actually would love to have players also fall on it because that would be fun. But these are just fun things. I want to not put any stress, as I said last time. It's about keeping things certain levels of vanilla, and I don't want to screw up the game. I think the game is fine. It needs improvement elsewhere. Not in things like this, but some jokes are fun. Do you think multiple attack animations for movement, running, spells, etc. would be a good idea? Absolutely. I actually love the way that Dark Messiah handles melee combat. When you go through a skill tree for melee, you actually get more attacks, and your animations become a lot more fluid. For example, you start off with 2 light attacks, but as you go up, you end up getting 4, and each swing does something, and I really like that idea. I would love to extend that towards the rest of the weapon set there. And finally, do you think Sarat's demonic armor or his sword exist as a model somewhere? And honestly, I'm not sure. I think that they look awesome, but I can see why they pulled back a little bit, because at the end you're supposed to have the choice of whether you go down that path. So I don't really know how you'd come across those weapons. I think that because they're concept art, they probably didn't exist. But, you know, we've got a bunch of talented people in the community. I'm sure somebody could wrangle it in there and we could, you know, recreate some more concept stuff. Since there wasn't much Garry's Mod questions, I figure I'll bundle both the closing and the questions together, because why not? It's only going to take a little, maybe a minute or two. Who knows? One of the questions somebody asked was, what made me get into animating or converting animations, things like that. And honestly, I just love animation as a whole. There's a lot you can see, and it's usually a lot of work for very little payout. So to really appreciate those animations is a big thing. And converting these things, I think, started because I was sort of exhausted with the way that certain things in the game just weren't like fleshed out, and it was very difficult to be creative with the limited set of animations, so started learning how to convert things and things like that. What is the first game mode you worked on? That would be my Toxin X, which was a Killing Floor remake, but in Garry's mod. It was based off of Redead, which in turn became based off of Toxin, which this is all complicated. But Toxin was originally a PvP thing, and I turned it into co-op, and again, knowing that I am a Mega Man enthusiast, made it extremely difficult and sometimes unfair. I called it competitive co-op, because Jesus Christ, sometimes you gotta look out for yourself to make it to the end of the day. And yeah, it was a good experience. I look back at that, and I've always wanted to redo it with my game mode antibodies, but it's about finding the time to go into that. And who knows, maybe in Sandbox that would be something that I would do. With that, that is the end of all the questions grouped together. Like I said, I apologize if I did Q&A. We would be way past the mark here. Actually, the first rendition of this video, because I'm re-recording this, was about an hour long, so I knocked it down to 30 minutes. I think that's pretty good. Of course, special thanks to everybody that's subscribing, everybody supporting me, just not even the channel, but just supporting me in general in everything that I've been doing development-wise. It means a lot. You know, I do this as a hobby. I sit back. I'm happy with everything. I'm happy with talking with people. I'm happy to do all things like that. And it just feels good to have some support in the background as well. I hope that at the end of the day, this whole video was a pleasant experience despite it being long. I hope you guys learned something about me, or at least had your questions answered and learned something about what you were looking to learn. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say here. Hopefully, we got a video coming up this weekend related to Garry's mod, and then we will be pumping back in. I am going to be trying to get a character design breakdown, and I'll be leaving a ModDB article up. So look out for that stuff. And if it's already posted because you're watching this in the future, then you've already looked out for that stuff, and you should go check it out if you haven't. If you already checked it out, then I don't really have much else to tell you. Check out some of the other future stuff that I do, whatever that might be. But at the end of the day, no matter what option you choose, you're the best. Keep that in your mind, and I hope you have a pleasant whatever timeline you're on right now. So thanks a lot, everybody, and again, I'll see you next time.